New buy sell keep avoid is back for Game Week 19. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, I'm here with my co-host Milton the Cat, and today we're going to be doing some buy sell keep avoid, going through those transfer trends ahead of the Game Week 19 deadline. As always guys, this video is split into two sections, the first of which we will be looking at the players you might already have in your FPL team and working out which ones you should keep and which ones you should sell. The second part, we will have a look at those players you should replace them with, who are buys and which players we should be avoiding. Picks will be tier listed with the best ones on top and the worst ones at the bottom. So let's get started with some of those forwards you might already have. And guys, remember, if you do enjoy these videos, make sure you do drop a like to let me know I'm doing a good job, and subscribe if you want to see this every single game week. But Jackson is the top of our keep list when we're looking through some of those forwards that a lot of people are selling. And that's mostly because, well, there's not really too much better out there. We will be coming to the buy section among forwards, but really when we look at Jackson, he's played 5 games in the past 6 game weeks, 2.13 XG, 17 shots. These are actually pretty decent numbers and are among the top for forwards in the game at the moment. So I know a few blanks, a few disappointments, but we've got Ipswich Town up next in Game Week 19, and provided there's no rotation there, he should be good to get some more opportunities to hopefully score some more goals. Wood is another player I would be looking to keep. The Everton away fixture is not ideal, but we do have Wolves and Southampton in the next 4, so I think that is good enough to justify keeping him. And although his numbers aren't anything crazy, again, they're pretty decent. He's also a penalty taker, which is very useful indeed. And Ollie Watkins is my third and final keep among the forwards, and that's mostly because of Duran's suspension. He has been suspended. Of course, that suspension has been appealed, so there is a chance that Duran does come back into the Aston Villa lineup, so just be aware of that one. But in general, if Watkins is available and Duran is suspended for the next 2 Premier League games, well, they're pretty decent Premier League games for him to be playing in. Brighton at home and Leicester at home, 2 of the most out of form teams in the Premier League at the moment, both at home. For Watkins, hopefully he can maybe claw some things back from some disappointments recently. As fun as it is to rag on Erling Haaland and Man City, we have to admit he was very unlucky against Everton in Game Week 18. And although Man City have been bad, it has to be said, Leicester have been even worse. So I do think Haaland, if you still have him in your team, at least has a chance to do something in this Game Week 19 fixture. So I'm not sure if I would rush to sell him, particularly now that we've all sold Saka and maybe there's a few more pennies around for us to be spending on a very luxury pick, which is Haaland. There's no way he is value for money. However, if you've got a load of money and you have him in your team, hey, why not? Joao Pedro is also one to monitor. Difficult to say as I am recording this before his Game Week 18 fixture. But against Aston Villa, it's an okay fixture. He's a penalty taker, but his numbers are down significantly over recent game weeks. So I am starting to call on Joao Pedro maybe a little bit later than I should have. Cunha is also going to be a monitor. The same advice applies from last game week. If he isn't banned, then you definitely play him. Spurs are now missing Dragusin, so they're missing even more defenders. They're going to get cooked by Wolves, you would imagine, particularly if Cunha is able to play. But the most recent update on Cunha is basically he has been charged. He was charged, more than a week ago now. It seems that Wolves have not appealed his ban, so he will be getting banned at some point. We don't know where, we don't know when. It's very strange, and it seems like the only reason Cunha is still playing is because of the FA's incompetence of actually processing this ban, which is strange, I know, but I guess it has been over Christmas time. Maybe that has delayed things a little bit, but we know that he is going to get that ban eventually, but we just don't know when. Another note on Cunha, well, how he is scoring so many FPL points. He should be banned, and he is basically scoring goals from no XG at all. Scoring from a corner is absolutely crazy against Manchester United, by the way. But Cunha owners, count your points, keep him in your team until you hear any new news, I suppose. Because if he's available versus Spurs, I think you've got more points on your hand. But it's definitely a player you need to monitor. Same situation with Duran, but the inverse is true. He actually is banned, but perhaps shouldn't be. So if the appeal from Villa is successful, then maybe Duran could be worth keeping. Monitor him. There we go. Monitor him up until the deadline and see if he is worth keeping. Evan Nilsson is going to be a sell for me. First sign of rotation for him in game week 18. And the fixtures coming up are not particularly good. Fulham, Everton, Chelsea and Newcastle in the next 4. It's not exactly what we like to see when we're looking for an attacker. A lot of away fixtures in this run as well, which isn't nice. And Vardy and Welbeck, given their injury issues at the moment, I think they would be pretty simple sells for your FPL team right now. For those midfielders, Luis Diaz, I know there's been a bit of disappointment with him not playing in game week 18, but it was just rotation. As we spoke about in last week's episode, players like Luis Diaz, players like Diogo Jota, they're always going to be at risk of rotation, and the key is to own them in the games in which they do play. And usually a rest in the previous game week is a good sign for minutes in the subsequent game week. So I would imagine, given that Luis Diaz did not play in game week 18, I think that is a good sign for his minutes in game week 19. I think Diaz, over the last couple of games in which he has played, has looked pretty good with some FPL returns as well as some decent numbers being put up by him. So I'd be more than willing to keep him versus West Ham and have another bite of the cherry, and hopefully this bite is a little bit more delicious. Enzo is also going to be a disappointing second blank in a row for him, but he looked really good in that game against Fulham. You know, he had an absolutely phenomenal game and was really unlucky not to score in that game, hitting the it came off Leno. Leno made this amazing kind of backtracking wrong hand save and that denied Enzo a goal in that game. So on another day, Enzo scores in that game. He could have assisted in that game as well, and it is a very, very different story. So Enzo looked good. I still think we can keep some confidence in him, particularly in this nice fixture against Ipswich. I would be looking to keep Ahmad as well. I know Man United have been disappointing over the last couple of weeks, but we know Ahmad is in very good form at the moment generally, and Newcastle at home is always going to be an opportunity for Manchester United to try and turn things around. I just don't personally think Ahmad is worth a transfer out. Though I have to say, I'm not sure if I would buy him at this moment with the next 2 fixtures a little tougher. You can always bench Ahmad as well in these next 2 fixtures if possible, because Southampton and Brighton are the game week 21 and 22 fixtures. Also not seeing a major reason to sell Mbeumo despite the fixture against Arsenal. Again, he's another player who plays tonight, so I haven't seen him play against Brighton yet, but I think he could do quite well in that fixture. I think given that many other midfielders have been even worse than Mbeumo, there's no real need to sell him at this moment. He's ticking along okay, which is just about as good as anyone else outside of the premiums in FPL right now in these midfield positions. And we do have Southampton in game week 20 for him as well. Man City out of form. So there are going to be more opportunities for Mbeumo. I think he is probably worth keeping, but I understand if you do want to sell him for someone else. Maddison, benched in game week 18, another one of those rotation risk players, but it's a good sign for his minutes in game week 19, particularly as Spurs lost. Maddison is going to be needed to turn things around at home against Wolves. Smith Rowe, potentially injured for this game week, but if he is back by Ipswich in game week 20, there could be some opportunities for you guys there, but in general, he's a player you can afford to bench most weeks, so maybe not worth the transfer, but also maybe if you have other ideas. And Bruno Fernandes, he is suspended for 1 game week against Newcastle. The fixtures after Liverpool look pretty good for him. So if you can bench him for 1 week, maybe you have a Rodgers on your bench, someone like that, I think it's absolutely fine to keep Fernandes. But if you were kind of forced to play Fernandes, you don't have that bench cover, then absolutely he is a player you could potentially sell as well. I don't think he is a high priority sell, but he is someone you could think about. And here are some players I truly would sell. Madueke, just far too rotation risk for me. And although there's a chance he plays against Ipswich, for the longer term, he is just not a player I would want to have in my FPL team. Cliver, with his suspension, offers a good opportunity to jump off him because if we're totally honest, the only way Cliver has been getting points is through penalties. And the fixtures are not good for a while for Bournemouth, Fulham, Everton, Chelsea, Newcastle. So there's no real reason to keep him around in your FPL team. A good opportunity to jump off, take your penalty points and run. Saka, with his long-term injury, is obviously going to be a sell if you haven't done so already. Looking through some defenders, I'd definitely be looking to keep those Liverpool guys. Trent Alexander-Arnold, super unlucky in Game Week 18 not to get anything out of that game. Bit of a freak goal with the deflection off Van Dijk to concede, and not really many other chances conceded by Liverpool in Game Week 18. And also Trent created 2 huge chances in 18, which unfortunately both led to his teammates hitting the post. So yeah, rough one for Trent owners, but I think he was unlucky. And I think even though the points would have been nice in Game Week 18, he's definitely shown some signs that he is going to be a very good FPL asset moving forward with his creativity, with some decent fixtures. So I would be looking to keep Trent. Same with Virgil van Dijk. We've got a double game week maybe coming in Game Week 25. That is going to depend on League Cup results, which we'll keep you posted on this channel of the implications of that. But right now, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, good fixtures, double game weeks coming up. This is looking good for these guys. I would be looking to keep both. And Josko Gvardiol, I know, again, another disappointment from him, but he was so unlucky not to score against Everton. Like, it is just so difficult to score against Everton right now, so it would seem. But his XG numbers are insane for a defender. They really are. We've got good fixtures. As bad as Man City are, Leicester are even worse, as we mentioned. And we've got the likes of West Ham, Brentford, and Ipswich in there as well. All opportunities for points if City can start to turn things around. But it's mostly the expected goal potential that Gvardiol has right now, which would mean that if I still had him in my team, I would probably not be looking to transfer him out. I would just keep him at this point. Mykolenko, I would probably lean towards keeping as well for his fixture against Forest. After that, fixtures do get a little bit rougher, but Everton just capable of keeping clean sheets against anyone at the moment. Saliba, one to monitor, but I don't know if I would necessarily buy him. But, you know, Mykolenko's good value for money. Saliba, if I still have him, I think about selling him at this point, to be honest, because the fixtures do get worse. I'm not saying Saliba is a must sell or anything like that, but if you had 3 Arsenal defenders, for example, I would think about reducing that to 2 right now with these fixtures. And if Saliba is one of your 3 defenders, he would probably be the guy to go for me, just because his attacking potential cannot really be trusted over the long term. Digne, small rotation risk, often plays in the games that you don't want him to play in and gets rested in the games that you would love him to play in. There is definitely some rotation risk against Leicester in Game Week 20, for example. He's kind of in the middle somewhere. Could sell him if you have other ideas, and hopefully we'll be able to give you some other ideas in this video. And Mazraoui, cheap. Manchester United, technically their defensive data isn't that bad, but they are conceding goals right now. That applies doubly for Dalot in the sell category because he is 5.1 million. That is just way too much to be spending on a Manchester United defender right now. Fass is potentially injured, poor fixtures. You're never going to play him anyway. It could be an opportunity to upgrade to a new defender, particularly if you've got a little bit of money in the bank. And Pedro Porro, not even guaranteed minutes anymore. The defense is shot to pieces. Spurs, on current form, are putting up some of the worst defensive numbers in the Premier League. I mean, you can see here, Leicester in the last 6 game weeks, 13.6 non-penalty expected goals against, and Spurs, 13.3. So Spurs are almost as bad as Leicester defensively right now when we look at those underlying numbers, which is crazy to say, but all Spurs defenders have just got to go out your team. Bye-bye. See you later. And guys, if you're enjoying the show, make sure you do drop a like on this video. It is massively appreciated. Do subscribe if you're new around here as well. But now we need to look at those players that we're going to be buying. And in the forward category, once again, we see the same name on the top. And it's going to be the same every game week, guys. If you don't have Isak, get him into your team. I can't believe some people still do not have him. Make it happen. You can do it. I believe in you. But at 9.1 million, his price is increasing, but it is justified because he is putting up the best data of any forward in FPL by a long shot. A lot of people maybe suggested that he would start to dip in form after the bad fixtures were, or the good fixtures were done and dusted. But he's continuing to score. And against Manchester United, out of form, Spurs, one of the worst defences in the Premier League. We've got Wolves and Bournemouth there as well. There's still plenty of opportunities. It is not too late to get Isak in your team. And honestly, looking through the forwards, Isak is the only standout forward to buy right now. He really, really is. There's other players you could potentially go in on, but in general, Isak is the one and only standout. Outside of that, we could maybe look at Nicholas Jackson if you don't have him already, with the nice fixture against Ipswich up next. But you've got to hope he starts. I think there is a small risk of rotation. Gabriel Jesus, I'm hoping he continues to start, because if so, he's going to be a very useful FPL asset to have indeed. Maybe some of you guys have bought him already and are looking forward to the Gameweek 18 fixture. Very curious to see what he does in that one. But we do have limited data with Jesus. It is a little speculative, but he has been in form. Monitor would maybe wait until after the Everton fixture before bringing him in. But how about Mateta as a bit of a differential? We know that Crystal Palace have some really nice fixtures from this point onwards. Southampton at home, followed by Chelsea, who have been a little bit worse defensively of recent game weeks. I actually think that you can play your Crystal Palace attackers against Chelsea without too much issue. Leicester and West Ham complete the next 4 for him. So even though Mateta not been massively performing recently, you could speculate that the good fixtures will breed good form, and we know Mateta has some penalty share as well. Watkins is one to monitor. If Duran is confirmed out and you fancy someone for the next 2 game weeks, there is some potential there if you have a lot of money going. And Gakpo is rotation risk, but he's been putting up some good performances recently too. I think we just have to say avoid Cunha at this point. We know at minimum he's going to cost you 2 transfers, one to bring him in and another one to remove him when he is inevitably suspended. We still don't know when that's going to be. I wish I had more information for you guys on that one. It is a frustrating one, but yes, you can keep him, but I don't think you buy him. Surely not. Surely not. Surely we can do better than that. And Raul Jimenez with his rotation risk. Yes, he played against Chelsea, but Muniz coming on and scoring, I think, is bad news for Raul's minutes. So I think monitor him at least for the Gameweek 19 game, but I would not be looking to buy him at all this week. And we've got Wissa as our final avoid. It's just a bad jumping on point against Arsenal. Not the right moment to buy a player like this, and his form has dipped regardless. For our midfielder buys, I think Martin Ødegaard is probably at the top right now. It's a little bit speculative, but he is going to be a penalty taker, set piece taker, and the fixtures are very good for him as well. He has that confidence of being a nailed on player with a pretty decent history of points. Usually, I would say he is bad value for money at 8.4 million, but at this point, now that Saka is injured, a lot of us have loads of money to spare. So, Ødegaard at 8.4 million doesn't seem such bad value after all. So definitely still some potential to go for a differential Martin Ødegaard for your midfielder of choice this game week. Still really like Ismail Assar. Unlucky last game week, had a goal disallowed for offside. Had a few other minor chances, but in all, it was a difficult game for him against Bournemouth. But next up, we have Southampton at home, Chelsea at home, Leicester and West Ham. So hopefully that's going to breed much more opportunities for Assar, who has been in red hot form with some very good data to back him up as well. And controversially, I'm going to put Jacob Murphy in the buy section as well. I think maybe he has been overlooked a little bit because we're constantly worrying about his minutes. At what point is he going to be rested, rotated? However, Newcastle have just been brilliant recently. They really have been so good. And given that we're getting to a point where everyone owns Isak, we might need to try and find an edge to really gain from this Newcastle form. And that could be in the form of Jacob Murphy, who, like I said, is doing brilliantly right now. Newcastle are doing brilliantly. And I think he may be starting to lock down that right wing position. Newcastle fans in the comments section, let me know what you think about that one. Do you think Jacob Murphy is going to be continuing to play for your team? I don't really see why not at this point, and his numbers are brilliant. And they're even better than Gordon's. Yes, Gordon, despite more minutes, has been putting up slightly weaker numbers than Murphy. Of course, Isak is the hub of everything, and that's kind of put Gordon in, I don't know, I guess in the shadows a little bit. And even Jacob Murphy has been outscoring him in FPL and looking better on the pitch, if you ask me. But Gordon is still a very good option. Like, let's be totally real. And if you have a little bit more money, you want the security of long-term minutes, then Gordon is perhaps a slightly wiser choice than Murphy at the moment. So you could definitely go there instead. Rodgers, I think this is a better point to jump in on him than last game week was, because we've got Brighton at home followed by Leicester at home. 2 back-to-back nice fixtures. You can play him in both of these and look to bench him in game week 21 and game week 22. Maddison, now he's had his rest, could show some potential against Wolves, and Luis Diaz, even though a lot of people are selling him, I would actually be considering buying him for this game week if you think his minutes are going to improve following a nice healthy rest. Bowen is going to be an avoid despite his recent heroics. He's had great fixtures in the past 5 game weeks, which has really helped his numbers, and his numbers have been good. I have to be completely transparent there. And a player in form, I would usually back against anyone. So I wouldn't sell Bowen necessarily, but the next fixture is against Liverpool. I don't think this is a great jumping on point for a player like Jarrod Bowen. Maybe give it 1 more week, maybe even 2 weeks. The fixtures in general from here for West Ham, there aren't really many good fixtures for the next 10, 11 game weeks. There's no, like, you know, those fixtures that you really look forward to, you know, Leicester at home, maybe a Brighton, or, you know, a West Ham, or a Ipswich, or Southampton. There's none of them for Bowen. He's had those fixtures already. So that is the difficulty with him if you're looking to buy a new midfielder. So I think I would avoid him. Kulusevski I would also avoid. Yes, he has scored 3 goals in recent game weeks, but his numbers are just not quite there for me. I think he's been a little bit fortunate to be picking up FPL points. And Iwobi is another player I would be looking to avoid. I know he did have that flurry of FPL points slightly earlier in the season, but last 4 game weeks, I think it's 4 blanks in a row now, I believe, and the next fixture is against Bournemouth, which I do consider a tough one. Iwobi had his nice flash in the pan, but I think it is time to accept that he was overperforming a lot, and I don't think it is sustainable. In the last month, it hasn't really been sustainable. So I think we probably leave that one. As for your defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold, like I mentioned, he showed enough in that Leicester game that he's worth buying, even if he didn't get the FPL points. Really, really creative, which is very useful. Fixtures look great. And if you have a load of money to spend, why not? If you don't have that money to spend, Daniel Munoz is definitely a potential player to buy. He had a really good chance to score against Bournemouth last game week, but he didn't quite convert that one. But it just shows once again how important he is in attack. I think if you've got a transfer to spend, you need a new cheap defender in your team, Daniel Munoz would be very, very high on my wish list. We've spoken about him as someone we're keeping an eye on for a few weeks now. I think now is the time to buy at this point. Southampton at home, Chelsea at home. I think you can even buy him against Chelsea because Chelsea have been a little weaker defensively, and Munoz does have such great goal threat. And we've got Leicester and West Ham after that. So a brilliant run for Crystal Palace and a great time to buy Daniel Munoz if you need a new defender. It's not too late to get Robinson either. He was playing very advanced against Chelsea. I'm not sure if that will happen in the subsequent game weeks, but Robinson is continuing to prove to be a very, very useful creative threat with brilliant fixtures for Fulham in the next 4, particularly if you are a defender. I think there's clean sheet opportunities in each of the next 4. If you're looking to go a little cheaper, Castagna is here as well. I think I would put Robinson above Castagna at this point purely because we all have so much money to spend right now, and Castagna as a cheap option, we don't really need those cheap options at this present moment in FPL. But I still do really like Castagna as a pick, and technically he has outscored Robinson over the past couple of game weeks, but I don't know if that will continue for too long. Milenkovic and Aina, those Forest defenders, could be a good hopping on point for them at this point. Now we've got a couple of those difficult fixtures out the way. Everton and Southampton in the next 4 are good fixtures indeed. Even Wolves, you can play these guys against Wolves and rotate them onto your bench for that Liverpool game in game week 21. But we trust Nottingham Forest defensively. I do prefer Milenkovic. I think he has more attacking threat than Aina and comes in at a significantly cheaper price. Well, 0.4 million. Is that significant? You tell me. But yeah, I prefer Milenkovic to Aina, who has been a little bit fortunate at times. So we're going to go Milenkovic as our preferred Forest pick right now. And Gabriel is the final player here on the monitor list. I still would like to have him for his attacking threat, but in this run of fixtures, I don't think he is a must-buy in the same sense as he might have been a few weeks ago. Lewis Hall is going to be an avoid despite his heroics recently. Manchester United away, followed by Spurs away, is a really tough couple of fixtures for Newcastle. I think there is going to be some goals conceded, and I think the run of clean sheets may come to an end finally. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that one. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but I don't think this is a great jumping on point for Hall. If you're looking for a cheap defender, Munoz, Robinson, Castagna, those Forest guys, I slightly prefer those, and therefore there's not really room for a new transfer in for Hall if you don't have him already. Of course, if you have Hall in your squad already, it's probably going to be useful in future game weeks for you, but not one to buy for me this week. Same with Howson at Bournemouth, who's been doing really well recently, but Fulham away, not a great jumping on point. We've got Chelsea away and Newcastle away in the next 4 as well. Everton at home is really the only fixture I can be confident of clean sheet potential in this run for Bournemouth. And Saliba, we mentioned earlier, he is a potential sell. Certainly would not be looking to buy him this week. And let's wrap up with some goalkeepers. Keep Raya if you still have him. I wouldn't be sacrificing him. Some of the worst fixtures may actually generate more save points for him, and I always trust Arsenal for a clean sheet no matter what the fixture. Sanchez, another player to keep, even though Chelsea have been dipping a little bit defensively. The next run of fixtures is really, really nice from a defensive point of view, particularly. Kelleher and Pope are going to be sells because they're not playing, be that through rotation or injury. And if I'm looking for a new goalkeeper right now, I'd be looking at Alisson, Pickford, maybe sells as well. But in the avoid section, I would put Raya. If you don't have him already, I don't think I'd buy him at this point. And Aretha Balaga is another goalkeeper I would avoid because of those weaker fixtures. So that is all of the players that I am going to talk about today. But there's always room for more players to talk about in the comment section. So if there's any players we didn't mention today, let me know in the comments and I can give them a rating. Are they a buy, a sell, a keep, or an avoid? No problem doing that. Leave your comments down below. But aside from that, make sure you do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe if you are new around here. We will be doing our annual birthday charity stream tomorrow. So make sure you've got those notifications on so you don't miss out on the charity stream. I'd love for you guys to get involved in that one. But aside from that, I will see you tomorrow for the stream and for another video on my birthday where I'll be revealing my Game Week 19 team. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.